RetirementSolutions.com.
21st Century Radio is sponsored by Hieronimus and Company. This is Talk Radio 680 WCBM. It's time now for award-winning 21st Century Radio. Here's your host, Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
One world, one mind, one love. We will find on common ground. Peace will be found for all on earth.
Well, welcome back to 21st Century Radio. I'm Dr. Bob Hieronimus, and our executive producer and research assistants, Laura Cordner. Our engineer is Anita Brockington. You're listening to one of our dear friends, Joanne Shenandoah, with harpist Bambi Niles. She's an Oneida elder. Our guest for the full 2 hours tonight is Alfred Lambremont Webre. And we are going to need all 2 hours to talk about his astonishing book entitled The Omniverse, Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, and the Secret Colony on Mars, first published by Bear & Company in 2014. Integrating science and spirituality, this map of the dimensions of the Omniverse sounds the call for scientific inquiry into the holographic origins of the soul, the potential of time travel, and our role as divine co-creators with Source. In this book, Webre explains how our souls are holographic fragments of God's Source, and how souls and Source are co-creating planets and galaxies as virtual realities for soul development. He addresses gray alien control over soul reincarnation, and also sheds light on the presence of invisible hyperdimensional controllers known as the Archons, who feed off negative energy. Alfred Lambremont Webre is a graduate of Yale University and Yale Law School and a former Fulbright scholar. He has taught economics at Yale University and constitutional law at the University of Texas. He is the former general counsel to the New York City Environmental Protection Administration, former director of the 1977 Carter White House Extraterrestrial Communication Study, and former NGO delegate to the United Nations, the author of Exopolitics, Politics, Government, and Law in the Universe. He is the recognized founder of Exopolitics, the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. Welcome to 21st Century Radio, Alfred.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, we're very glad you could happen. Excuse me. We're very glad you made sure that you got here. It's really important to us because we had a hell of a time enjoying ourselves reading your entire book, and I don't think anyone else is going to read the same book that if I handed my book over to anybody else that I just read, I don't think anyone would probably be able to read it, because every page is written on. Every page in multiple different areas. That's how important I think this book is. There's a lot for me to learn here. Now, I understand that we met many years ago in Washington, D.C., at the home of Barbara Marx Hubbard. What was that about?
Yes. Well, I actually was in Vienna, Austria, covering the Unispace 3, which was the UN Outer Space Conference. And there I met Barbara, and I met Sir Arthur Clarke, the late Sir Arthur Clarke, and also some other colleagues like Dr. Carl Rosen, and we all became friends, and we established the Institute for Cooperation in Space to promote the peaceful uses of outer space and to prevent the weaponization of space. And all these people were on the board, and Carol and I became sort of the day-to-day coordinators of it. And Barbara was gracious enough to invite me to be in residence at her home in Washington, where you and I met, which was, I guess, the mansion of
Greystone.
Chief Justice Hughes, when he was Justice of the Supreme Court in Rock Creek Park there. So I was there, and I recall meeting you and your wife, and we sort of had a circle there at that time. It was during the Reagan years, and we would have a diverse crew of people come through, and we met yourself. We were there with the 1st Earth Battalion, Colonel Jim Channon. We would have the odd cabinet member of the Reagan cabinet come through. We would have all sorts of futurists and thinkers and others come through. It was a very interesting period.
It certainly was a very interesting period. Those are years that I enjoyed very much. But let's start with the basic definition of what you mean by the title of your book. What is the Omniverse? What is a multiverse? And how do these terms differ from our traditional concept of the universe? Now, this is an important question. It's going to take a while, I'm sure, to answer this one.
Yeah, that's really a key to the whole book, and why we really sat down and spent the years from 2009 up to 2014 when it was published, really bringing it into fruition. And I think that it was advanced conceptual physicist Professor Amit Goswami who really pinpointed the difference here of universe, multiverse, and omniverse. He argued that contemporary science's assumption was, quote, only matter consisting of atoms or ultimately elementary particles is real. That is the basic assumption of contemporary science, and that was an inadequate hypothesis, and that a new hypothesis of reality was required, and that the notion that all things are made of atoms is an unproven assumption, which is the basic assumption of the universe, and it is not based on any direct evidence for all things. And when the new physics confronts us with a situation that seems paradoxical from the perspective of material realism, we tend to overlook the possibility that the paradoxes may be arising because of the falsity of our unproven assumption. Mm-hmm. So that's a roundabout way of saying that the universe is a construct. The concept of a universe is a construct of modern science. And so the definition of a universe is, quote, an organic singularity of time, energy, and space and matter. And it was discovered by the Sumerian astronomers between 3500 and 3200 BC. And that's kind of let's say that's the current iteration of history. And that is the definition that modern science takes as our universe. However, there are today, in 2018, three principal cosmological bodies through which humanity comprehends the cosmos. The first is the universe. The second is the multiverse. Now, what is the multiverse? The multiverse is the totality of all universes. And that's a concept that was discovered and popularized, propagated by the American scientist and psychologist from Harvard, William James, in 1895. And so, again, the multiverse is a totality of universes, so that's where string theory goes. However, it's a totality of universes of space, energy, time, and matter. So it's all stuff about matter and atoms and other dimensions like time, energy, and space. Now, that leaves a huge void, and that is the new paradigm of reality that Professor Goswami and many other scientists are currently addressing. Mm-hmm. And that is what we believe is the third major cosmological body through which humanity comprehends the cosmos. You've got the universe, the multiverse, and now, as of 2014, you've got the omniverse. Now, what is the omniverse? The omniverse is the integrated whole of all the universes in the multiverse plus what used to be a matter of faith but now is a matter of science. And that is the spiritual dimensions that include the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual entities, and source. Mm-hmm. And why was it formerly of faith and not of science, considered to be of faith and not of science? Because we have been in a civilization that since the Sumerian times has considered anything that is outside of the world of atoms, time, energy, space, and matter, to be a matter of faith. And that we can get into all sorts of complications on the exopolitical side, whether that was a trick played on us by some colonizing extraterrestrial called the Anunnaki, but we won't get into that right now. Suffice it to say that as of 2014, as people will discover in the book, we can, through the scientific method, which we can define as a uniform protocol and replicable results. As long as we have a uniform protocol and replicable results, that is the essence of the scientific method, and that is how we explore and can prove that there are such non-local entities as the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual entities, and source, which some call God. There are various names for source. Now, the omniverse itself was first formally proven in 2014 in two independent science-based books by two scientists in different parts of the world, one David Bertolacci and the other yours truly. Mm-hmm. And very often different people simultaneously make scientific discoveries in different parts of the earth. And the discovery of the omniverse is an example. It's as though nature, like we have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 ears, wants to have a backup when it sort of downloads new discoveries to us. So that is what the universe, how the universe, multiverse, and omniverse are distinguished. And in terms of of an historical development, I would say. It's the discovery of the Omniverse is the integration of science and spirituality. And that is really what it signifies. Areas that formerly have been a matter of faith and have been sort of considered to be in the province of what I call social and political organizations, namely religions, because they aren't scientific organizations exactly, because they have very, very different stories about what goes on in the afterlife and what the nature of God is and how the soul is tended and the nature of the soul, etc., that do not correspond to what the science is of the afterlife and the soul. This is the time when science and knowledge are reclaiming the spiritual dimensions from religions, which are political organizations, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
And so that's kind of the overall definition, and I think sort of the larger social and context.
Oh, thank you very much. We got to take a break here right now. The 20-minute break here. Thank you very much for that. I have a better understanding of that, and I know that this is an important introduction to many of our listeners here, because this is just one of the most unusual books I've ever read, and I enjoyed it immensely. We'll take our break here. I'll be right back with our friend Alfred Lambremont. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Weber. The Omniverse, Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, and the Secret Colony on Mars. I can't wait to get to that. Bear & Company, 2015. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hello, this is Dr. Raymond Moody, author of Life After Life and The Last Laugh, and you are listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronimus.
Hey, goodness. Haven't heard from Ray for quite a while. Hope he's twisting the night away. Welcome back to 21st Century Radio with our guest, Alfred Lambremont Webre. The Omniverse, Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, and the Secret Colony on Mars, Bear & Company, 2015. You can go to Exopolitcs. I'll spell that for you. Exopolitcs.com. And you can check out his popular YouTube channel or find him on Facebook or Twitter. Well, needless to say, your conclusions are way out there according to current establishment concept of reality in the Western world. But you are a trained lawyer, and you have approached this research using the scientific method. Tell us about the wide variety of sources from where you pull your primary research data.
Well, yeah, very, very interesting. For example, to go into the dimensional ecology, and that is to go into the fact that we live in a universe and a multiverse of time, energy, space, and matter, I actually spent the good part of 2014, the good part of a decade and a half interviewing whistleblowers from the secret U.S. government time travel program and teleportation program. And these are more than between 6 and a dozen whistleblowers who actually time traveled and teleported on behalf of the U.S. government to the future and to the past. And this was one of the most highly, and continues to be one of the most highly kept secrets of the U.S. government. And it affected me personally because I was to find out from one of the whistleblowers, chrononaut Andrew D. Bashago, who was an eyewitness to this, that my 2005 book, Exopolitics, which founded the science of exopolitics, which is the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. It's kind of like the anthropology of the universe, the anthropology of outer space. Anthropology is the science by which describes different categories of humans on our planet and how they evolved, etc. And exopolitics describes the different categories of what we call exophenotypes, or different categories of intelligent civilizations that populate our universe, which are not all humanoids or mammals, or some of them are reptilian, some of them are highly intelligent plants from the vegetable kingdom. And you have intelligent avians and intelligent felines, and intelligence can take all sorts of different biological forms, as well as an inorganic form, a sentient inorganic form in the universe that we call sentient artificial intelligence. So it's a very, very complex universe and multiverse that we live in. But I had the direct testimony, for example, of the secret whistleblowers from the secret time travel program and teleportation program, and one of them revealed to me that my book, my 2005 book, Exopolitics, had been secretly time traveled by DARPA and the CIA from 2005, when it was published, back to the year 1971, when it was brought into a meeting that this particular chrononaut was having with two other persons, and brought out of a satchel, typically materials that are brought through time travel, say from the future back to the then present, or the past, are brought back in satchels like where classified materials are held. And they brought out in 1971 Exopolitics by Alfred Lambremont Webre, popped out on the desk on the table where these people were meeting. And in 1971, I was general counsel to the Environmental Protection Administration of New York. And in 1971, I was asked, one of my tasks was to speak to different groups around the city of New York on the protection of the environment. And I recall quite distinctly getting an invitation to speak. It was kind of an anomalous invitation because it was a very different group from the students and housewives that normally ask me. This was a group of about 50 or so people. It took us a couple of hours to get there, who were all in suits or shirts and ties, and I knew instantly that they were government officials, and they were on the second floor in a nondescript office building. And later on, when I met with and began a relationship with the time travel, one of the time travel whistleblowers. We concluded that these were in fact 50 or so officials from the secret DARPA CIA time travel agency that had a copy of my book, may have been doing time travel surveillance on me in the future, and wanted to see what I looked like back in 1971. I call it time travel surveillance. And so I recall giving this talk on the environment, and I knew that there was cognitive dissonance going on, that there was something other than what was supposed to be happening in the room, because a number of them were kind of making faces at me and et cetera. And I knew that they were intelligence officers or something like that. But I still, soldiered on and did my talk on the environment. And so that is sort of the strange kind of experiences that I felt like a character out of the movie Enemy of the State. When the main character has someone drop this state secret into a shopping bag, and all of a sudden the NSA is looking down all of his things. Well, because the CIA time traveled my book, which founded Exopolitics, from 2005 back to 1971, suddenly I became a person of interest for the CIA and for all of the alphabet agencies, and I became under time travel surveillance for all the 40 years forward, but not really knowing at that time that time travel existed, if you follow my drift.
Of course, yeah.
And from there, I went on to interview whistleblowers from the top secret Mars colonization program, and to interview actual extraterrestrials who had been left as babes, as infants. It was kind of like the Superman story, where an infant from Alpha Centauri had been left with a couple who were farmers at a farm and brought up there. He had tremendous talents, kind of like, a bit more powerful than regular humans. And, so I just developed all of the sources that, and became interested in parapsychology, the whole research in the afterlife, and I met experts, a professor of experimental psychology at Rutgers, who was also an expert in parapsychology, in life after death, in the afterlife, and I was able to fashion, in a way, a graduate education on my own in all of the disciplines that were necessary to make these discoveries and to make publications over the course of the last 40 years.
Whoa, boy. Thank you for unwinding there. On page 22, friends, when you get a copy of this book, check out page 22 and 23, because there's a great more detail there, as your book is just filled with new things to me all over the place. I like this one on replica replicable information derived from technology based of out-of-body experiences, the Montauk chair device, chronovisor, and teleporter, and then we get to jump rooms, etc., etc., etc. We don't have time to cover most of those other things, but there are a lot of other things I want to get to, and we need to take our break here on 21st Century Radio as it hits 8:40. Is that correct? Yes, it is hitting 8:40 with our guest, Alfred Lambremont Webre, The Omniverse, Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, and the Secret Colony on Mars, Bear & Company, 2015.
Give me your time, your more, your hollow glass.
You know what I was surprised to learn when studying the Statue of Liberty? That liberty for real women is the key to humanity's survival on this planet. Truly. And also that Lady Liberty has Native American roots, and that America has reverence for the female half of divinity or the goddess at its very foundation. Powerful women and role models for balance are all part of our new book, The Secret Life of Lady Liberty, Goddess in the New World. It's a new way to understand America's history and future. Buy your copy today at Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, or from our website, SecretLifeOfLadyLiberty.com. That's SecretLifeOfLadyLiberty.com. Just chock full of all new reasons to love the United States of America.
Hello, this is Nancy Duterre. I'm the author of How to Talk to an Alien, and you can find out more about my work at theskepticalpsychic.com or talkalien.com. You are listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronimus. He is one of the most generous radio show hosts I have ever had the pleasure of working with. I think I'm going to call him Hieronimus the Magnanimous.
You know, how do you like that? I got a new last name there. Absolutely free. Okay, well, welcome back to 21st Century Radio. And we're studying a book here. And the book is called The Omniverse, Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, and the Secret Colony on Mars. It's published by our friends at Bear & Company in 2015. ExopolitcsTV.com, or check out his popular YouTube channel or find him on Facebook or Twitter. Now, I'd like to examine the subtitle of your book next, because there are subjects that will excite our listeners just like they excited me. The subtitle of The Omniverse is Transdimensional Intelligence, Time Travel, the Afterlife, Secret Colony of Mars. So tell us about Project Pegasus, please.
Yes, well, Project Pegasus was the name, the formal name for the DARPA CIA time travel project, and that was in the mid to late 60s and early 1970s. The personnel involved there, and this is from actual interviews that we did with a relatively large number of whistleblowers from the project, including chrononauts Andrew Bashago, and then Bernard Mendez, who was a U.S. presidential advisor, who was also on that project, and William Brett Stillings, who now still works for a defense contractor in Southern California on projects having to do with the secret space program. And the defense attaché of Project Pegasus back in the mid 60s to early early 70s, was the person who would turn out to be the Secretary of Defense on 9/11, on September 11th, and that is Donald H. Rumsfeld. And he was a cabinet member reporting to the president at the time, who was very interested in the whole issue of time travel, and that was Richard M. Nixon, whose national security advisor was Henry Kissinger. So these are all the people that were involved in that. And the CIA, of course, its principal mission, and this is where we get into something I think that was a misapplication of potential misapplication of time travel technology. So it's mentioned in passing in my book, but it doesn't really go to the model that we were able to construct. And one of the applications that occurred coming out of Project Pegasus in 1971 was that on orders from the CIA, Project Pegasus in 1971 did a number of things. Number one, it pre-identified all of the future U.S. presidents from that point on. So it pre-identified George H.W. Bush, Bush 1, Bill Clinton, Bush 2, that's George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and the current president, Donald Trump. And we've published articles showing, and in the book there's ample evidence showing that all of these individuals were pre-identified as of 1971, especially the two Bushes, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, were pre-identified in 1971 and were groomed as secretly groomed to be future U.S. presidents. So that the implication being that the U.S. elections were, in the sense of time and timelines, a bit of a charade, because only the winners would be briefed, and the CIA would brief them on governing from the right or from the left, but yet with a fairly steady policy of U.S. imperialism, and that's why we've had a U.S. the imperial U.S. government since then. Donald Trump is a slightly different case, although we published an article which came out prior to the 2016 election giving evidence that Trump was pre-identified prior in 1971 and was informed prior to the election that he would be U.S. president and was pre-identified by the CIA. Time travel. Trump's uncle, of course, John Trump, had been assigned by U.S. intelligence to be in possession of and analyze Nikola Tesla's papers on quantum access and time travel after Tesla died. So these are some of the things that are great revelations to America and the world, which come out of our research and come out of the publication of the book. and that is that America that is what I call the chronarchy, the secret time travel government. The chronarchy knew since 1971 who the U.S. presidents were going to be from 1971 to the present. And all of the presidents knew that, and that's one of the deepest, darkest secrets that there are. The basic machines, there are 8 types of time travel technology now. One of the basic ones was the chronovisor, as you mentioned. The chronovisor in its most primitive form is like a TV set that you would look into, and since we live in a time-space hologram, everything has an address in time and space, A, B, C, D. In other words, all you need is the date and time at which something occurred, and you can locate it in space and time because everything is occurring now. It's just that we experience time in a certain way. And so you could sit down in front of a hologram and dial up a series of events in the past and the future and view it like if you're watching it on TV. And that's a technology that was discovered by 2 monks at the Vatican, Ernetti and Gemelli, and what they discovered is that it was a discovery of the Omniverse, not only of the universe. That is, the chronovisor can discover events and interactions not only in time-space inside a universe, but they can discover events that are happening in the afterlife as well. So it's kind of a navigator to go backwards and forwards in time and into the afterlife and communicate with the afterlife as well. And that's part of the technology that we have now where we can technologically communicate with entities in the afterlife. So that's just a bit of the background here.
Very important background. How have time travel, teleportation been weaponized rather than used as technologies for the public benefit?
Well, that's a key question, and we've been hard at work attempting to bring this to the public over the last years since the publication of this book. What unfortunately occurred is that the Nixon administration, and these were all secret orders at the level of Richard M. Nixon, Henry Kissinger, and the liaison at that time, who was the defense liaison with the project, Rumsfeld. They declared that time travel and teleportation were a matter of national security and could not be shared. Mm-hmm. In other words, that the only uses of teleportation were to be to place troops and to transport troops to a battle or to the front line for military purposes. Whereas, in fact, teleportation is a prime condition for a planetary civilization to go from a zero-type civilization, which we are, in which we consume our own planetary nest, to a one-type civilization where we're actually living on the replenishing energies of the universe, the interstitial energies of the quantum. And So that was a very, very unfortunate decision that we can lay at the feet of Donald Rumsfeld, Henry Kissinger, and Richard Nixon. Because, as we've shown, planetary teleportation is the key to the next level of the development of Earth. You just have to read Jane Jacobs' book, which shows that what highways and what the overpasses have done to the inner city and to land use, and to show what fossil fuels have done to the atmosphere, and what strapping 2 tons of steel to your waist to go pick up a bottle of milk at a grocery store does. That is probably the most tragic and wasteful decision that was made in order to serve the petroleum interests and the steel interests and all of these interests that were tied to lower level sciences that have ever been made, whereas advanced planets operate on the basis of teleportation, such that there are no roads, there are no vehicles. Individuals, goods, and goods are teleported from point A to point B within cities, within from across continents, between continents. If you live in New York and you want to have lunch in Paris with your counterparts, you just teleport there from.
And at there, we're going to have to stop right now and return with our guest after a break at the hour. We'll be back with the Omniverse and Alfred Lambremont Webre, Transdimensional Intelligence, and you just heard what he said. Despite its potential application as a global non-polluting transportation technology and substitute for petroleum-driven transportation infrastructure, that's why we're stuck with oil.
Stay connected with stimulating talk and breaking news on Talk Radio 680 WCBM, Baltimore, and WCBM.com.